The sun was bright that Saturday morning, and the smell of fresh coffee filled my small kitchen. My daughter, Maya, danced around in her yellow dress, her laughter echoing through the room like music. She was only 6, but her joy had a way of lighting up even my darkest days. That day was special. My mother had invited us to the annual family reunion. It would be the first time she'd seen Maya in years. I told myself this could be the day everything changed, that maybe, just maybe, my mother was ready to make peace. As I brushed Maya's hair, she looked at me with her big brown eyes and asked, "Mommy, do you think Grandma will like me?" My heart ached a little at her innocent question. I smiled and said, "Of course she will, sweetheart. How could she not?" For a moment, I let myself dream of laughter, forgiveness, and a picture-perfect family gathering where the past no longer mattered. I imagined my mother holding Maya's hand, smiling proudly, and calling her my beautiful granddaughter. But deep down, a quiet fear whispered inside me. What if nothing had really changed? What if my mother still cared more about appearances than love? I shook off the thought, took Maya's hand, and said, "Let's go make some happy memories." I didn't know then that this reunion would break my heart and change the way I saw family forever. Growing up, I always wanted my mother's approval. She was the kind of woman who believed that perfection was everything, the perfect home, perfect smile, perfect family. Our house always looked like something out of a magazine, but inside, it often felt cold. My mother, Margaret, cared deeply about what others thought. She wanted her children to be successful, polite, and respectable. I tried my best to be that daughter for her. Good grades, clean clothes, quiet voice. But no matter how hard I tried, I always felt like I was never quite enough. Everything changed when I met Ethan in college. He was kind, funny, and genuine, the complete opposite of my mother's world. We fell in love quickly. He came from a different background, and that made my mother furious. She said I was throwing away my future. But for the first time, I felt seen for who I really was, not who I was supposed to be. When I got pregnant with Maya, my mother's disappointment turned into silence. She told me she couldn't face the neighbors and that I had shamed the family name. Ethan tried to stay, but the pressure was too much for him. He left before Maya was born, and I never heard from him again. It was just me and my baby, 2 hearts against the world. Those early years were hard, but they were filled with love. Every giggle, every tiny hug reminded me why I had to keep going. Still, a small part of me never stopped wishing that my mother would one day accept us. I wanted Maya to know her grandmother, to have the kind of family I never truly had. So when that invitation came for the reunion, I believed it might finally be our chance to start over. It was a quiet Wednesday evening when my phone rang. I almost didn't answer when I saw my mother's name flashing on the screen. My heart skipped a beat. It had been months since we last spoke. Her voice sounded calm, almost unfamiliar. "Lily," she said softly, "we're having the family reunion next weekend. You should come and bring Maya." For a moment, I couldn't speak. She had never invited Maya before, not once in 6 years. My throat tightened as I asked, "Are you sure, Mom?" "Yes," she replied, her tone polite but distant. It's time everyone met her. After the call ended, I sat there in silence, holding my phone, trying to process what had just happened. It felt like a tiny spark of hope. Maybe she was finally ready to make peace, to accept Maya as part of the family. When I told Maya, her eyes lit up. "Grandma wants to see me?" she asked excitedly. I smiled and nodded, hiding my nervousness. "Yes, sweetheart, we'll go and meet everyone." For the next few days, our home buzzed with excitement. Maya picked out her favorite yellow dress, the one she said made her look like sunshine. I baked my mother's favorite lemon cake, hoping it would remind her of happier times. I told myself this reunion could heal old wounds, that maybe we could laugh again like we used to. As I packed our bags, a strange feeling lingered in my chest, a mix of fear and hope. I wanted so badly to believe this was a new beginning. But deep down, I had no idea that this invitation would lead to one of the most painful days of my life. The day of the reunion arrived faster than I expected. Maya woke up early, excited and full of energy. She twirled in her yellow dress, giggling as she asked, "Do you think Grandma will like my dress, Mommy?" I smiled and nodded, hiding the nervous flutter in my chest. As we drove to my mother's house, my hands gripped the steering wheel tightly. It had been years since I'd walked through those gates. The white fence, the neatly trimmed garden, the polished porch. Everything looked exactly the same, yet strangely unfamiliar. When we arrived, the driveway was full of cars. Laughter and chatter spilled from the backyard. I took a deep breath, held Maya's hand, and walked inside. My mother, elegant as always, greeted us at the door. She looked surprised for a brief second, then smiled politely. "Lily, you look well," she said. Her eyes flickered to Maya. "And this must be your daughter." "Yes, this is Maya," I said softly. Maya beamed. "Hi, Grandma," she said brightly, reaching out for a hug. My mother hesitated, just for a moment, before patting her on the shoulder. "Hello, dear," she replied, her tone polite but distant. The living room was filled with family, cousins, aunts, uncles. Everyone seemed happy, but I could feel their curious eyes on us. Some smiled warmly, others just whispered. Maya, innocent and full of curiosity, greeted everyone with her sweet energy, completely unaware of the tension around her. During lunch, my mother kept making small comments, asking about my job, my apartment, even my car, but never once asking about Maya's school or hobbies. And though her words were wrapped in politeness, I could feel the unspoken judgment beneath them. Still, I told myself to stay calm. It was just one day. Maybe she needed time to warm up. But in my heart, I already sensed it. Something wasn't right. After lunch, the warm air outside was filled with laughter and the soft hum of conversation. Children ran across the garden. The older relatives sipped lemonade. And for a moment, it almost felt normal. I started to believe that maybe things were going better than I feared. Then my mother clapped her hands lightly and said, "All right, everyone, let's take the family photo before the light fades." People began gathering near the flower arch in the yard, smiling and fixing their clothes. I lifted Maya onto my hip and started walking toward the group. She was smiling wide, excited to be part of it. But before we could take our place, my mother's voice cut through the air. "Actually," she said, her tone soft but sharp enough to sting, "maybe Maya can sit this one out. The photo theme is traditional this year, and she doesn't really match the look." The laughter around us stopped instantly. The world went quiet. I froze, holding Maya close, unsure if I'd heard her right. "What do you mean she doesn't match?" I asked, my voice trembling. My mother forced a small smile. "Oh, don't take it personally, Lily. It's just about keeping things uniform. You understand." Maya's smile faded. She looked up at me with confusion in her big brown eyes. "Mommy, did I do something wrong?" That was the moment my heart broke. I could feel everyone's eyes on us, some shocked, others silent. I took a deep breath, placed Maya gently on the ground, and said quietly but firmly, "If my daughter isn't part of your family photo, then neither am I." Without another word, I took her hand and walked away. Behind me, no one spoke. The sound of my mother's voice faded as I closed the gate, and with it, a part of me that still hoped she would change. The drive home was silent. The sound of the tires on the road was the only thing breaking the heavy air inside the car. Maya sat in the back seat, hugging her little teddy bear, her bright eyes now dull and confused. I kept my hands tight on the wheel, trying to hold back the tears burning behind my eyes. When we got home, Maya finally spoke. Her voice was soft and shaky. "Mommy, why didn't Grandma want me in the picture? Did she not like me?" Those words shattered me. I pulled over, turned around, and gathered her in my arms. "Oh, sweetheart," I whispered, my voice trembling. "Grandma was wrong. You did nothing wrong. You are perfect, more perfect than anyone in that picture." She nodded slowly, though I could see she didn't fully understand. Her innocence made it hurt even more. That night, after putting her to bed, I sat alone in the dark living room. My chest felt heavy, part heartbreak, part anger. I kept replaying my mother's words in my mind. "She doesn't really match." How could she say that about her own granddaughter? About my little girl, who did nothing but smile and love? For years, I have forgiven my mother's coldness, her harsh words, her judgment. But this time, it wasn't just about me. It was about Maya. And I couldn't stay silent anymore. I picked up my phone, typing and deleting message after message. I wanted to scream, to tell her how cruel she had been. But in the end, I turned the phone off. She didn't deserve my words. Silence would speak louder. As I looked at Maya sleeping peacefully, I made myself a quiet promise that my daughter would never grow up feeling unloved or unwanted. Not like I did. 3 days passed before my phone finally rang. I stared at the screen for a long moment before answering. It was my mother. My heart pounded in my chest, torn between anger and hope. "Lily," she began, her voice calm but cold, "I think you overreacted the other day." I closed my eyes, trying to steady my voice. "Overreacted?" I repeated softly. "You told my daughter she didn't match the family, Mom. How was I supposed to react?" She sighed impatiently. "It was just a misunderstanding. You know how I am about family traditions and appearances. I didn't mean to hurt anyone." Her words made my hands tremble. "Mom, this isn't about a photo theme," I said, my voice breaking slightly. "It's about a little girl who looked up to you, and you made her feel like she didn't belong." There was a long silence. I could almost hear her pride battling with guilt on the other end of the line. Finally, she said, "You've always been too emotional, Lily. I was only trying to keep things proper." "Proper?" I whispered, tears welling in my eyes. "If being proper means breaking a child's heart, then I don't ever want to be that kind of proper." My mother didn't respond. After a few seconds, the line went dead. I sat there, phone still in my hand, tears sliding down my cheeks. But beneath the sadness, there was a strange sense of strength, a feeling I hadn't known before. For the first time, I wasn't that scared little girl trying to please her mother. I was a mother myself now, and I had someone far more important to protect. Weeks turned into months, and slowly, the heaviness in my heart began to fade. I poured all my love and energy into Maya, my sunshine, my reason to keep going. We built a new rhythm together. On weekends, we painted, baked cookies, and took long walks to the park. Maya's laughter filled every corner of our little apartment, and her joy became my healing. I joined a local mothers group, and for the first time, I met women who didn't judge me for my choices or my past. They listened, laughed, and reminded me that family isn't always made by blood. Sometimes it's built by love. Maya was thriving, too. She made friends easily, loved her teachers, and even won a small art competition at school. One afternoon, she came running to me, holding up her winning painting, a picture of two people smiling under a bright sky. "Look, Mommy," she said proudly. "It's us, our family." Tears filled my eyes as I hugged her tightly. In that moment, I realized something important. We didn't need anyone's approval to be a family. We already were one, complete and whole. Sometimes, I still thought about my mother. There were days when the memory of her words still hurt, but each time it hurt a little less. I was learning that forgiveness doesn't always mean letting someone back into your life. Sometimes it just means freeing yourself from their power. And as I watched Maya grow, happy and confident, I finally began to understand. Love doesn't have to be perfect to be real. It just has to be true. It was a quiet Sunday morning when my phone rang again. This time, the name on the screen wasn't my mother's. It was my younger brother, Daniel. We hadn't spoken in months. My stomach tightened as I answered. "Lily," he said softly, "Mom's not doing well. She's been sick for a while, and she's been asking to see you." And Maya. For a long moment, I didn't say anything. The memories rushed back. The photo, the humiliation, the pain in Maya's little eyes. Part of me wanted to hang up. Another part whispered that maybe this was life's way of bringing everything full circle. After a long pause, I finally said, "Okay, we'll come." When we arrived at the old house, it felt different, quieter, almost fragile. My mother was in her room, lying in bed. She looked smaller, weaker, but her eyes softened the moment she saw us. Maya, ever so kind, walked up to her without hesitation. "Hi, Grandma," she said gently, holding out a small flower she'd picked from the garden. My mother's lips trembled as she took it. Tears filled her eyes as she whispered, "She looks just like you did, Lily, when you were little." I stood there silently, emotions swirling inside me. I didn't know if it was forgiveness, sadness, or relief. Maybe all three. For the first time, I saw my mother not as the woman who hurt me, but as someone who was finally realizing what she'd lost. Maybe it wasn't karma in the cruel sense. Maybe it was just life's way of teaching lessons too late. After that day, things didn't magically return how they used to be, but something inside me changed. I no longer carried the same anger or sadness I once did. Seeing my mother so fragile, so human, reminded me that even those who hurt us are sometimes broken themselves. We visited her a few more times after that. She tried, in her own quiet way, to make amends. She'd ask Maya about school, listen to her stories, and even frame one of her drawings on the bedside table. She never apologized outright, but her eyes said the words she couldn't speak. I decided not to demand more than that. Some apologies come in silence. Some healing comes from simply letting go. Maya continued to grow, confident, loving, and full of life. One evening, while we were watching the sunset together, she asked softly, "Mommy, will Grandma ever love me like you do?" I smiled and brushed a strand of hair from her face. "Maybe one day," I said gently. "But even if she doesn't, you have me, and I'll love you enough for both of us." She smiled, leaned her head on my shoulder, and whispered, "That's enough for me." Later that night, as I looked around our little home, I saw the photo on the wall. Just me and Maya, laughing together in the park. No perfect poses, no fancy background, just two hearts full of love. I realized then that family isn't about matching faces in a picture or living up to someone else's idea of perfection. It's about love, kindness, and standing by the ones who see your worth. And as I whispered goodnight to Maya, I knew one thing for sure. I hadn't lost a family that day at the reunion. I had found the one that truly mattered.